You do it with me. We'll go 3, 2, 1 and clap so we can sync all this stuff with the audio. 3, 2, 1. You don't have to live with pain or chronic neuro issues any longer. In this podcast, you will learn how to stabilize your brain, body, and biochemistry for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Teams, and this is the NeuroReset Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the NeuroReset Podcast. I'm Dr. Teams. We're hosting this at our podcast studio at Braden Johnson. And we've got a special guest with us, a longtime friend of mine, Braden Johnson. So Braden is actually one of the state's top real estate agents, and he has history working in the mortgage industry too. So, I come across patients all the time that are talking about stuff, so I always try to get them connected with you. But with your vast amount of knowledge on both sides of the coin of like mortgage and the housing market, you're a great resource for your customers. Everywhere we go, you talk to people, you answer questions. It's just, you're really, really knowledgeable. And I wanted to have you on here to try to get your knowledge out to everybody else in case they need any help.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate
thanks for having me. Thanks for helping me out. And thanks for working on my back.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's got one too. Let's talk a little bit about that. But like we met, I'm going way back. I'm dating us here. So, I started playing Chandler American Little League at 10 years old. And I think you did too.
Yeah. So I was in Tempe American.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we knew each other through baseball. And then I think the first time we actually played together, we were 12.
Was it?
It was
like in middle school.
Diamondbacks, maybe.
Yes, with
Tarno and
that like traveling team, right?
And Chad Miller, I think,
Yep.
and like they had the air attack too, the air attack. Oh.
So these bats were when we were talking about this recently. The bats that we used back in the day were like borderline illegal, or they were illegal.
So our era between 95 and 2005 was the hottest bats ever made.
That's
like
crazy.
There's a guy named actually I don't know his name. It goes by Bat Bros or Bash Bros, baseball bat bros, and he does all these reviews on all the like best bats ever, and he brings ones from like back in our time, and this was before they had the BESR, the ball exit speed ratio. So they were trying to get him as hot as possible, and he's getting like 120 miles an hour off the bat, I think, which is insane. That's like Giancarlo Stanton has 119 off the bat in the MLB.
Yeah.
And
so
15-year-old kids were getting 110, 115 miles.
So why the hell wasn't I dropping bombs? That's a comment. That's a conversation for another day.
For sure.
So we started. I started my baseball career back at like 10 years old, and then we played against each other in middle school.
Yep.
I was at Corona or Aprende. You were at
Pueblo,
and then we joined forces at Corona.
Yep.
We've got all the stories spanning back to those years. So we'll keep it PG here, maybe PG-13. But then I think it was after high school we started golfing.
Yeah.
Right? When did you start playing?
You started golfing in high school, right?
Yeah. So I started playing in middle school, and then I played for Corona and starting in freshman year.
Yeah, I'd played like, a few rounds a year, just randomly whenever I got the chance. And then my dad actually bought me a set of ping irons for my 18th birthday. And then when I went to college to play baseball, I broke my hand. Oh yeah, that's a story for everyone.
That's a story.
So broke my hand, redshirted on the baseball team, and then I started playing golf because I had nothing else to do. Mm-hmm. So I started playing golf and then just fell in love with the game, of course, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
And now that's what we do all the time.
That's pretty much all we do. If I'm not working, I'm golfing.
That's true.
It's definitely tougher to play. Obviously, I think the older you get, my responsibilities are different than yours. With you have kids, I don't have kids.
Yep.
But my business is I have to be on site 4 days a week. So it's a little tougher. And then the days that I can't get out and do other stuff, whether business related or meetings, I'm usually pulling on Fridays.
Yep.
So it usually leaves me weekends, and weekends are a little tougher for everybody with families to get together. So
yeah.
I actually haven't been playing as much golf since opening this Braden and Spine, but anybody out there that wants to challenge me, I'd love to take you up just to get me out of the office here. That's the place where I go to recharge and just being out in the elements, swinging the sticks. Playing great is also always good, but
it's nice to play well. But like you said,
the best in the world still skull shots across the green. So I shouldn't feel so bad.
Yeah, hitting a shank is definitely not something I like to do.
So, so you mentioned your back.
Yep.
I know you played last Friday.
I did.
Just to kind of give you a little backstory, we've known each other forever, right? Going back almost 30 years at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. But when I was in chiropractic school, he had a little issue with his neck and some issues with his arm.
Yep.
That's since resolved. I didn't actually get a chance to really treat him for that. But turns out generally hitting the gym, getting healthy, going through that 75 hard was a pretty cool turning point, I think, for that arm of yours, right?
Big time.
And granted, it was a great excuse to not outdrive me, but at the same time, you've been putting in a lot of work on a daily basis. Most days of the week, you're in the gym, and it's something that I have a hard time doing. Because I worked in a gym, I don't love being in the gym.
Yeah.
So I typically, I just don't go as often as I should, and so therefore, like, you outdrive me a little bit more these days. And we could talk about that. Like, I know a lot of people probably are curious about like 75 hard and what that's like. So I've never done it. I generally eat pretty clean most of the time. I get off of it from time to time. But what was that like?
I think it was great. It's a great like reset for your mind and body, and gets you on like a routine. I'm a dad. I got kids. I just did whatever, ate whatever, drank alcohol, did all this stuff, and then you just kind of forget. And then I stopped working out, so I wasn't going to the gym. So it was just a great thing that my company, actually Limitless, they were like, hey, let's do this 75 hard. And at first I was like, oh man, there's just no way I'm going to do this. No way. I'm like 75 days. I'm like, no alcohol, like working out twice a day, like drinking a gallon of water, reading 10 pages of a book. But it was great. I loved it. And it got me on a routine. It got me back in the gym. Obviously drinking a ton of water is always good for you. No alcohol is the best. You probably shouldn't ever drink alcohol, right, even though we love it. And I do enjoy it. It's just not good for me. Because I would eat a lot when I drank alcohol. I think that was the big problem.
Gotcha.
But doing that 75 hard was great. I mean, I lost almost 50 pounds, which is incredible in 75 days.
Yeah.
But just limiting the alcohol, eating a good diet, a strict diet. I did paleo.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a huge fan of paleo. I just had to pick one, so I picked that one.
Yeah.
I'm more so kind of like the meat, like carnivore diet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I recommend it. I think it's great. Mentally good reset, get you focused, and I was very productive and did great in life and in business. So
awesome.
Definitely recommend
So you referenced Limitless. Tell me about that, because that's newer, right? You're like,
yeah. So
how long you been in the real estate business? Like,
so I've been a real estate agent for 17 years now, which is crazy.
That's nuts.
I know. 2007, 17 years.
Just the great time to get into it, right?
It was the worst time to get, best time and worst time. So when I got my license, I'll remember everyone and their mother was getting their license. Like, it was like, oh my God, real estate is so great. The market's going up. We're going to make millions of dollars. And then it was like, and then everyone laughed at me. So I got my degree in real estate too. Uh-huh. So I went to ASU. I was getting my degree in real estate, and I just got my real estate license, and everyone was kind of laughing at me like, oh, great choice. And I had no idea. I had no clue what I was getting into. And I wish that I would have just gone full blown into that right off the start. But I've been doing it for 17 years. And then, like you had mentioned, I did mortgages for almost 6 years, 6 full years, from 13 to like 19. And that was great, because I learned a ton that real estate agents, they know about mortgages and they know interest rates and like how to get approved and qualify. But I really got to see a ton of the back end stuff. And the most important thing is, no matter how good I can write a contract or find you a house or put you in the right perfect fit, if you can't get approved for the mortgage, you don't know what your credit score is. You don't know how to properly show your income. There's a bunch of little tips and tricks that you can do to help yourself get approved, getting all your ducks in a row and getting things ready to go. So that really helped me, and the back end, as well as like title work and like just all the different things that we go through as a loan officer. Took me to a whole nother level on my real estate knowledge.
I can only imagine it really is like a complete difference between the way you can speak to people versus the way that somebody who just like only took a real estate license. And even if they've been doing it for years, but to have that hands-on experience has got to really put you at a whole other understanding, and the conversations you have with people are probably different than just, what kind of house do you want? What do you want in this? What?
Totally. And I think of it differently, because I'm thinking like instantly I meet you. I'm like, okay, what do you do? how long have you been doing it for? Like, I kind of pre-approve people like in my head, and it's just natural. So I know like, they'll be like, I don't know, I just got this new job and I got a raise, but I'm getting a bonus. I'm like, no, that's good. Like, we can, here's how we use that. Here's how we show this. So, and then some people don't understand, you know, if they're self-employed, they might not know, or they don't understand like how to show your income, because you can write off everything as much as you want, right? As a business owner, that's the goal, is to pay the least amount of taxes. But when you go to get approved for a house, you actually want to show income and, like, you know, kind of, it's like have your cake and eat it too, which is what people try to do. And so I know how to kind of help people around that.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. If you don't mind, I'm personally interested in the business owner type of approach, right?
Yep.
So if most business owners out there are like sole proprietors, they work for themselves. They're in the business most of the time. And so like the goal of a business owner might be to, right, you utilize write-offs and everything is part of the business. So it shows your actual profit or your take-home income as a much lower amount than what it might really be. So what are some keys that you found, and what kind of numbers do you kind of need to see, vague numbers, right, for like certain houses these days? Because it certainly changes with the percentage rate, right? An $800,000 house or a $500,000 house at 3% versus 6% is like, how much? That's a huge difference.
So that's a really hard question, I guess, to answer, to like get you like an exact number, obviously. But
what are some like what would be some things that if I were going to buy a house like in the next 3 months, what would be things that you would tell me to do?
So it depends on the time of the year, because obviously if you filed taxes or you haven't filed taxes. Now, the good thing is if you talk to a mortgage professional, someone that really understands that and understands like the self-employed business. So whether you're a sole proprietor and you just have a Schedule C, or if you're an S Corp, or if you're an limited
LLC,
not LLC, but there's another one. Anyway, there's different types of ownerships in there, and there's different ways that we look at it and we use the income. So on Schedule C, it's typically like the very last, your net income after all expenses and write-offs, then plus like depreciation and some other things. So we can use certain things to qualify your income. But if you haven't filed taxes, you should talk to a guy first and say, hey, how much do I need to show? Like, what if I want to buy an $800,000 house and interest rates are 6%, like they are 6.5%, 7%, like they are now, we can kind of work backwards and show you, like, if you want to buy an $800,000 house at 7% interest rate, you need to make this much money a year based off of a 45% debt to income ratio. And we can show you, like, hey, if you show $125,000 in income this year, you would be approved for that house.
Cool.
And then it gives you a chance to say, like, well, you know what, I don't want to claim that much. Or that's easy, I'm going to claim more than that. And then you don't have to pay either as much taxes, or you have to pay a little bit more taxes. It is what it is.
Yeah, totally. So. But it's interesting. I know when we first started, the main thing, you're like, don't go buying stuff. Stop buying things, right? Especially on credit card, right? Or just large transactions. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so I mean, the number one thing as an adult is your credit score. You have to have a good credit score. And people don't understand or even know what affects credit. They're like, hey, I pay off all my stuff. I pay cash for everything. Well, cool. You probably don't have a very good credit score, because you need credit and you need debt to get a good credit score, which is the weirdest thing, right?
Super backwards.
It's super backwards. And you need like 7 to 11 different trade lines or credit lines to like have and show a full credit history. You need at least 3, maybe 4 sometimes, depending on what you're going for. But I always recommend have credit cards, use your credit cards, but pay them off. Make sure that you keep balances at least under 50% is okay. 30% is ideal, and under 10% is like the best. The credit score it's a funny thing, because if you have a 700 or above credit score, you can typically get approved for whatever you want. But most people don't understand or know why they didn't pay that Cox cell phone bill, or that thing in college when they had their roommates and they split up, and there's always like collections or medical, things. Oh, I didn't know I had to pay for that broken ankle that I had 2 years ago. It's like, well, make sure that you get those taken care of. Call the companies, see if you can have them deleted, have them removed. If you do pay them, don't always just pay them. One, they'll take less money usually every time, because it's already in collections. They already made money off of it if you give them anything. So always try to see if you can pay it off. You don't always have to pay it in full. Make sure that they delete it or remove it from your credit report. That's a big thing, because if you pay one for $200 and they don't do anything, it doesn't change your credit score. But yeah, utilizing credit, your credit utilization rate, which under 50%, under 30%, under 10% is a big one. Another thing that you can do, and this is a trick that I tell people, is let's say you have $5,000 on your credit card. You have a $10,000 limit, so you can spend $10,000, but you have $5,000 on it. You can call them and ask for a credit limit increase, which typically doesn't affect credit. It depends on the bank on what they actually need to do, but it's a free thing. You don't have to pay any money, and they might increase it to $12,000 or $15,000.
And that changes that percentage,
on paper,
right?
It just changes your utilization rate.
Yeah.
So that's like an instant. Just ask, hey, can I get more limit? Can I get more credit? If they say yes, it appears on paper that you paid that balance down and you didn't do anything.
So how long does something like, let's say we pull that move, we'll call it the move.
The move.
Okay. So let's say we pull the move, and then how long does it, like a change in finances, how long does that change take
your credit score
to hit like your score?
So good question. Typically every 15 to 30 days, the credit bureaus actually just do an update. Like they'll check your accounts. It's usually for sure every 30 days, but I think every 15 days they'll do one. The mortgage lenders though have a thing called either rapid rescore or just like a rescore in general. And they'll basically apply that and ask for an update like right then and there. So you get like a quicker one. And that only takes a few days.
Yeah, that's cool.
So if you pay something off or get a credit balance, a credit limit increase, it can affect your scores like that week or the next week if you're trying to get approved. So within that 30-day window of like the mortgage process, we can have that done for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the definite don'ts in that 30-day process are what?
Don't buy anything big.
So
don't
like,
take out
I've got a new couch come in.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is they want to buy furniture or appliances and stuff like that.
And try to have it like delivered when they move in. Right?
Yeah, which makes sense, but don't put them on credit cards. Don't open up new credit cards, because anytime you open up a new trade line, underwriters go, wait, what is this? Okay, now we need to verify, and it just makes it a nightmare. So don't open up new credit cards. Don't buy large payments. Don't buy a car.
Even if you're going to pay it off, like
even if you're going to pay it off, just don't do it. Just wait. Talk to your loan officer. Talk to your realtor. Just be like, hey, what can I do? When can I do it? And they'll tell you. But you don't want any large purchases. No new credit cards. I'm trying to think of what else people do. So people buy cars all the time, which is crazy.
Like default. I know you told me a story that somebody had defaulted on like a car payment or something.
Yeah, one of my good friends, ex-boyfriend, they bought a car together. They were making payments on it. They don't talk to each other. The ex-boyfriend decided not to make his payment.
And this was
2
like
weeks before we're supposed to close. And this is years after.
Yeah.
I mean, he had made payments the whole time. And like 2 weeks before we're supposed to close, it hits. Her credit score drops like 100 points. And she gets declined on her loan as we were trying to buy a new property. So properties are hard. Mortgages are hard to get. They're not easy. That's the hardest thing. Cars, anyone will sell you a car. Don't go buy that new Hellcat that we both want. Don't go buy that until you actually close on the mortgage. The mortgage is the hard part. Get that done. Anyone will sell you a car at any time if you have a pulse.
The car will still be there.
The car will still be there.
The furniture will still be there.
Furniture, all that stuff. So those are big things. And just making sure your credit cards are paid, your payments are on time. It's just, I can't stress this enough. Your credit score is the most important thing as an adult for anything. You want to go get Cox Cable, they check your credit score. You want to get utilities, something, you want to get a new appliances, you open up a credit card, you want to buy a house. Like there's so many things where your credit score makes you a big boy and gets you what you want. So credit score is the number one thing to get ready and get in line before you are ready to buy a house.
Awesome. So what is your process like to sell a house compared to maybe some other people? Just tell me about like what do you focus on?
That's a great question. So perfect example. I just sold a house in Mesa. There was a comp that had just listed for $650.
Okay.
My sellers were like, hey, what are you going to do? Can we list it for that? They wanted $675. I had told them $675 was a realistic number. I said, hey, based off of the comps, based off of this, it's an exact model match. We've got a pool. We've got a couple other features that I think would be better. We're going to list it at $675 because that's exactly where it needs to be listed. What I do is I take the time to talk with my sellers. I walk through the entire house. I tell them exactly what I think, what we need to do, what we need to fix, if we need to paint, if we need to touch up. I get everything depersonalized. I get it looking just like a model home, right? You go to these model homes, these fancy, Toll Brothers neighborhoods, they're perfect. And the way things are laid out and the shape of stuff and how much furniture versus like if you have a giant living room table and it's awesome and you love it for your family, but it makes that room look tiny, that's probably not something that we want to display because it might give the feel that, hey, this room isn't big enough. But it's just little things like that. And then the marketing, pictures, photos, video, I do all of that stuff. And so today's world, when you're looking at your phone all day, every day, if you can get on someone's phone, that's the best thing to be, right? So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those things. Video marketing, I think, is one of the best things you can do right now to show off all the features, your backyard, your pool, the neighborhood. We did drone video. We did the neighborhood video. They have a really nice amenities. They have a pickleball courts, which is super popular. So I did the video to really capture all of that stuff. So when it's all said and done, they sold for $645, so $5,000 less than what they were going for. We listed the exact same week. We got $30,000 over, multiple offers. I got
so the comp sold 5,000 less.
5,000 less than us.
You sold 30 over,
and I was able to get 30,000 over what we asked for. So we were already priced above because I think we were just a superior property with the pool, and they had some solar panels that were paid off, which is a kind of a big plus. So we were listed 25 grand higher because I think we were $25,000 worth more than what they were. But just the difference, they didn't do all the marketing, they didn't do all the strategy, they didn't do, I answer my phone. That's the other weird thing is that I talk to people, I talk to agents. Anyone that calls me knows that I'll answer my phone. So I do a really good job of negotiating, trying to get the client's best interests and the best deal possible. So what I was able to do is take 5 different offers, get them to basically compete against each other. We were able to go 30 grand over. They did a shortened inspection period. They bought it as is with basically no repairs. And then they also waived appraisal. They did an appraisal gap. Whereas if it came in within 30 grand of the purchase price, they were going to pay the difference. So there's 2 different things. You can waive the appraisal fully, meaning, hey, we're not even going to care what it appraises for, or you can do a gap. And that's kind of the most common thing is people say, hey, I've got up to 50 grand that I can spend if the appraisal comes in low. They did 30. Appraisal came in low, 21,000 low. We kind of knew it would, but I was able to secure the best offer with the strongest terms. And we closed at $705,000.
That's awesome.
That's just a little bit of a difference between what that person did and what I did. And so I take it to a whole nother level, especially if you want that.
Yeah. Well, and I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in some situations you're like, you know what? You already found a new house. We're trying to sell the old house.
Yep.
Like you're already out of here. Let me just do my thing.
Yeah.
And so what is that? Is that kind of the same situation just without staging?
It doesn't change a whole lot. The staging kind of does help. And if you're going to leave and take all your stuff out, it's a blank canvas. So some people have a tough time seeing a house with furniture in it. Most of the time, I think studies show that if a house is staged properly and it's beautifully done, it's going to outsell and outperform one that's not. But sometimes a house is almost better vacant because you can kind of see the true layout of it and the functionality of it
and get your own ideas
and get your own ideas. Yes, because some people see things totally different. So staging versus not staging, I think usually staging is going to outperform it. But I sell homes that are vacant all the time. You just got to prepare it and make it look perfect.
Gotcha. The open houses aren't as comfortable with a vacant house, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to sit. I sit on countertops and on chimney, ledges and stuff like that. So not quite as nice without the furniture there.
With part of that prep, the sales prep cycle or your process, I know that I can't remember the guy's name, but I know you've got a guy for everything that's going to be needed to make sure to spruce up the house, right?
Yes.
So people don't need to go and find their own people per se. They can, but it's a lot easier to just talk to you first because you've got your whole list of people, right?
Exactly, and it is huge. So having a good network of people and a good referral source. If you need a painter, if you need a plumber, if you need a flooring guy, if you need an electrician, me doing that every day, every week, I have all those guys or I've used all those people before. So being able to come to me and have me be your one-stop resource, that's going to be very just what's the word?
More convenient.
Just the convenience factor is huge because if you go if you go anywhere and that person knows all the different people, all the things, and you have to, call 5 different people, it's going to make your life a lot easier for sure. So that is one thing that I offer and that I have at my disposal, is that I've got a ton of people, a great network, and I can help pretty much get anything done, whether it's landscaping, painting, cleaning, all the stuff. We can get that done.
Awesome, man. So, okay, just out of just kind of fun stuff, what is the most expensive house you've sold?
Ooh, we did a $2.5 million house a couple of years back. That was really, really nice. And this was like probably maybe 4 years ago now. So prices have gone up since then. But yeah, I mean, luxury homes, they're awesome. They're sweet. I get a few every once in a while. I do enjoy it. They're a whole nother animal. And the clientele is different. The people are different. The marketing is different. So it's a different experience. They're fun. They're beautiful. Like, sometimes I'm like, wow, I wish I could own this home, or one day I could have this giant RV garage or this couple acre land. But really, the bread and butter is the average, regular, everyday person that buys the $300,000 to $700,000 houses. That's mostly what most realtors do. We all dream of selling the $5-10 million homes. But
what are the shows like the LA or
selling sunsets? Or $1 million listing.
$1 million listing. That's right. They're like 20-30 million. You're like, what the heck?
Which is cool, but that's a whole different ballgame in that field. Which at the end of the day, it's the same stuff, but it's just a little bit different. It's not for everyone. That's for sure. Yeah.
So, all right, awesome, man. Well, are there any? Well, before we're not going to sign off just yet, but how do people get a hold of you? Like, where are you at? You on social?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Those are like my 2 go-tos. I'm on TikTok. Yes,
of course. I've seen those dances.
I'm on TikTok.
So what's it like? What's your tagline? What's your the tag? How do they find you?
Yeah, so Braden Johnson Realtor. If you type that in anything in Google, you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram. Braden at Braden AZ Homes is my email. BradenAZHomes.com is my website. You can find me one of those 3 ways, and then also you can give me a call, 480-228-2749. That's my cell phone number. And like I said, I always answer my phone. So
awesome. All right, we're going to put it to the test. Hopefully we get a call out of this.
Currently we're recording on a phone, so I won't be answering if you're watching this right now.
That's right. That'd be crazy if you just got a phone call. You're like, holy cow, it's a new client.
That would be.
All right. So that's super cool. I love it. I've bought and sold. Well, I bought and sold one house, bought a second house. So I'll tell you my story on some of this real estate. So the first house, we kind of went through that whole contingent based on that higher. We got kind of we sold in maybe 2021, and we had what's the
contingent?
No, like multiple people.
When we had multiple offers?
Yeah, multiple offers. Yeah. There we go. So we had like 4 or 5 people.
Oh, yeah, we had a bunch of offers.
And it was like the first weekend that you did it, and then all of a sudden this stuff. And I was actually out of town when you were trying to sell this. I mean, I remember I was in Mexico, and you're like, hey, we got a bunch of offers. We got these offers. I think this is the best one. This one is a little riskier because it's the highest, and it's based off of what the appraisal comes back as.
Yes.
And the next one was like a couple thousand below that, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 below that. And I went with that one because that was a done deal, cash deal.
Yeah, it was a cash offer. So
and they did an appraisal, and it came back, and it matched what the higher one was going to be. So I was like, damn it. But I mean, for me, bird in hand versus 2 in the bush was exactly what I needed at the time.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I really wish that I would have held on to that house because it would have been perfect for my parents to retire in. However, it didn't work out that way. But the next house was the fun one. So I was off on a Friday, and we had just kind of spruced up the backyard because we decided to stay there. Well, I get a call from a friend who just had a baby, and he tells me, he's like, hey, here's this link to a cabin. I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And I was like, oh, it looks good, da-da-da. So I start looking around, and I show her, my wife, the link. And so she starts shopping around. She's like, I'd rather have like our dream home than a cabin first. Okay, cool. So she finds this property that's in a county island, and it's an acre, and the pictures are awful. Do you remember seeing those pictures?
Yeah.
It was like, it would have been like your phone accidentally went off as you were putting it in your pocket, and it just happened to grab like a light, a mirror, and the ceiling.
It's so funny because there are listing agents that do that and put cell phone photos, and not even good ones.
Yeah.
Like you can make an iPhone photo look pretty sweet.
For sure.
Yeah. So anyways, keep going.
And so it was listed for sale by owner, and we found it on Zillow. Yeah. And I drove by it, and I was like, gave you a call, and he answered, of course. And so we popped over there later that day, and you're like, huh, interesting. So we drove up and we got like a little better look at it. And then you called, I think, the listing agent, but she answered, the actual owner answered, right?
Yeah. So I think she had paid money. You can pay like a couple $100 and have somebody like post something on the MLS, I believe. Because I think, or maybe it was on Zillow.
I think it was just on Zillow.
But it was like, hey, call the owner directly. So I called her and I talked to Joy, right? It was Joy. And talked to her. We ended up taking a tour of the property. Yeah. We got to see it.
And we're like, holy cow. Right?
Yeah, well, we could see the potential and the value that was there because just the land alone was worth what she was asking for the property, which was the fun part. But then she called. She had just signed a listing agreement to actually sell it with like a professional, proper realtor. Yep. So then I had to deal with the realtor, which is not bad at all, but it would have been nice to deal directly with the seller.
So there was maybe a 4 or 5 day process. We were like, hey, we want this house. And then she's like, hey, that's cool. But like, I hired a real estate agent, so you're going to have to talk with them now. She's like, I'm basically just over trying to sell this myself. Yes. We're like, and you're like, that's totally fine. And you're like, I could sell it for you, right? But it was just kind of maybe a conflict. I don't know. But so the other real estate agent gets involved and we're like, we want the house. We want the house. We'll give you this amount. We'll give you this amount. And as I remember it, your job was to sell the owner and the real estate agent on not getting it listed. Correct. And so we were able to accomplish that at like the midnight hour, the night before it was supposed to go live, and then we got a contract signed.
That's right. And I forgot about that.
And so with ours being on a county island, it was a pretty difficult deal for paperwork and things because we had to separate a 3.5 acre property into our property and her property. Yep. And so we had to get that done. We had to get I don't remember the name of the guy. A surveyor out there.
Survey done, yeah.
Had a surveyor, like we're still going through permitting for a water meter, which is supposed to be put in the next 3 weeks. And so this has been almost 2 years in the making, a little over 2 years in the making of that. But it's like, we work it out with the neighbor because you were so good about communication that we basically have everything dialed in, right? And so just being in county is different than city for sure. Yeah. And so it's just been a little bit more of a process, and I'm learning a lot about it. But the pros highly outweigh the cons. You just have to wait for stuff and the processing, but then you can kind of do whatever you want with your home. Yeah. Like no HOA, all that stuff. So
County Island is really cool. It's definitely different, but a lot of people love it.
Yeah.
Most people do.
Our place originally started as like this 40 or 50 acre farm that one person owned, and I think they passed away and it was sold.
That whole big area of land.
So like we're actually where there's all those trees that we drive by. Yeah, that is where the original homeowner was. His house and second house and like barn are right next door on the other side of that fence.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like you'd roll in, and the rest of his property, or all the way north, was the rest of his farm. So that was sectioned off into multiple acres and things like that. Like there's still two or a couple like 4 or 5 acre farms. And I know some people own like 3 or 4 acres on one side, and then like kitty corner, they own another 3 or 4 acres. They have their horses, they have all their like work trucks and heavy machinery and stuff like that. Whereas the other side is kind of like they raise their horses, they might have some cows and stuff like that. But it's like they're like just mini farmers. And it's a pretty cool neighborhood. The thing I like the most about living in County Island is that they have a light ordinance, meaning they don't have street lights. So they call it light pollution, right? And so in the middle of the night, it's dark. Like you can see the stars, you can see the light from the city. Yep. Whereas everywhere else, you've got all these street lights, and it's not the same as like laying in your backyard and looking up.
I didn't even think about that. And you're right on that stuff, but I wouldn't even... I don't notice it because we have street lights.
Right, yeah. I really like it because it's quiet, so you can actually hear the birds. Yeah. Right? You can, like, you'll hear a plane going over every once in a while, but, like, I mean, it's kind of the Wild West over there. Yeah. And I freaking love it. Yeah, it took me a while to get over hey, we've got to finish the house, we got to update the house, and I just recently did that, but I'm happy. I'm finally happy with it.
I think you remember. I was like, hey, man, like, this is going to be, like, a lot of work.
You never said that.
For sure. I tell everyone, I'm like, okay, look. You buy a lot of land, like it's not just like, oh, it's going to be perfect and everything's going to be easy.
The one thing I will say is anybody moving into County Island, just be prepared for the weeds. That is probably the hardest part to deal with.
And right now they're terrible.
Yeah, because we just got all that rain.
Yeah, the rain.
Yeah, we got all that rain, and we try to do everything as organic as possible for like killing things off. But like Bermuda grass ain't gonna happen. Yeah, like, you got to just cover that stuff up.
That's tough right now for sure.
But yeah, I mean that's the main thing with you. I was excited to share your information with the world here. I think you can probably help a lot of people. And if anybody's on the fence about their own real estate agent, you're thinking about buying, thinking about selling, I can personally tell you, and I know all of our friends have used Braden, and he's made the process so easy, fun to do, and ultimately he just has your best interest in mind, and he'll tell you the way it is. So, yeah, I mean, thanks for coming out here.
Thank you.
One more time, phone number?
480-228-2749.
Okay. And then Braden Johnson Realtor.
Instagram, Braden Johnson Realtor. Yeah, that's going to be my hashtag or my quote or
whatever
handle.
These kids call it. Yeah.
Whatever these.
So
these
Facebook,
days.
Instagram, TikTok.
Yep.
And then website is
BradenAZHomes.com.
Okay. And then email BradenAZHomes.com. Okay. Very cool. I'll put all that stuff on the link below. Make sure we do that, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for sponsoring this too. You didn't know that, but you're buying lunch out of this. No, but anyway, yeah. Well, if you ever want to be on again, keep us updated on some of these changes and maybe some of these percentage rates and what the market's actually looking like.
Yeah.
We can do that again and maybe talk a little more golf too. Maybe we'll get some live golf and like a long drive competition.
That actually would be fun to do a little golf outing. Get the recordings
like they had with Tom Brady and the other dudes. Like put it on the cart. And just that would be a lot of fun.
That would actually really.
We'll have to make it happen.
We need to find a way to do that.
Can we write that off?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, it's a write-off.
Cool.
Unless you're trying to buy a house, don't do that.
Don't do that. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for another round of the NeuroReset podcast. We can jump into all the pain stuff that he was dealing with at some point. I know we just kind of got off track here, but he's got to run, and we'll look forward to it next time. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. See ya.